Bonhoeffer was in field training. He'd been one of my troopers for 52 days.
Shots fired, officer hit. Shots fired, officer hit. We need to start fire.
Today is evidence of the violent nature of policing in our nation. It's also evidence that just because somebody is unarmed doesn't mean they won't become armed. This is a very dark day for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. I guarantee you that we will be resilient and we will press on.
A sad day across Arizona yesterday as DPS trooper made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our community. 24-year-old trooper Tyler Edenhofer was shot and killed after a scuffle with a suspect. Two other troopers were injured in that scuffle.
Arizona's family following that tragic story from the very beginning, and our coverage continues this Friday morning. We really appreciate a visit from Director of Department of Public Safety, Colonel Frank Milstead. Given what you're going through and what is on your plate right now, it is incredibly gracious of you to give us the time to come and talk to us. We grieve with you, and we are so sad about the loss, and I cannot imagine what lies ahead for you as you guide your agency through this heartbreak.
Well, Olivia, Javier, it's my job to be here to represent the agency and the men and women that put on a 7-point star every day in a silver tan uniform to work as the police department for the state. And Tyler was officer for, like you said, 52 days. He'd been a trooper. He had been in the Navy, served our country, had a servant mentality. He was an honorable young man. And it's my honor to be here to represent him at the highest level.
I know you had mentioned this yesterday, and I think it broke everybody's hearts about the first words that his mom said to you when you made contact with her.
Yeah, and she just looked at me, she goes, "You just got him." And she's right. And I remember both her and him at the graduation on May 4 because I think this was one of the proudest moments of her life, was to see her son, after the Navy, don this uniform and become a state trooper. And I told you off camera before we started, I've been at this now for almost 34 years, and I've done all kinds of things that I probably shouldn't have survived. But the fact that it's so short into the career, and Kaylee, his fiancée, asked me, why does it have to be Tyler? And the only answer I have for that is we all have our time here, and we don't know what that time is. And it's just a horrible tragedy, and it shatters lives when this happens. And the nonsensical nature of this gentleman who was out in the roadway for whatever reason, and then wanting to fight so vehemently with law enforcement is just, it's, like I said, nonsensical.
As you try to digest what happened out there and the bizarre circumstances, it's a reminder to us all outside of the law enforcement community how dangerous the job is, how unpredictable it is. How do you tell your troopers, especially those who just graduated from the academy with Tyler, to forge ahead, to be cautious, but to still be bold and brave and embrace the job?
So I couldn't have said it any better, to be bold and brave and embrace the job. And that was probably very close to the first words I used when I met with his academy mates at the hospital yesterday morning. And then Deputy Director Silbert and Lieutenant Colonel Webb met with the entire class and the squad and everybody. They spent about 4.5 hours last night doing a debrief and just letting everybody talk about exactly that, the risks, the bravery that it takes to go out and confront each day, because you don't know what it brings. And all we can do is, and I think we all have this innate ability to believe that it will never happen to us. And I think the fact that we hire young men and women who are servant mentality, who are risk takers, that plays into that same equation. But for me, and really it comes out of the governor's office, is they have to know that leadership believes in them and supports them in what they do, and they don't have to wait to be reactionary to do the things they need to do to protect themselves.
Are there any other details that have come out of this investigation thus far that you can share with us during that scuffle that allowed that suspect to get a hold of that gun?
You know, Javier, I don't know the answer to that, and I too am curious whether the trooper had actually drawn the weapon and was giving commands hands, or it came free during the struggle, or if the suspect was able to feel it during the struggle on the side and get to the gun. The field training officer that day was in plain clothes. He was literally in blue jeans and a t-shirt. He was supposed to look like he was a citizen observer, so those who were using the services of the Arizona Department of Public Safety and meeting Trooper Edenhofer out on the roadside would not go to the second officer, but would stay primarily focused to Trooper Edenhofer. So the final phases of field training.
What can you tell us about those two, of Trooper Roadcap and Doris, how they're feeling today, or what they've been able to say about the experience and their emotional state?
With complete candor, the last night or early yesterday morning, I had some very, very deep concerns about both of them having been through this experience. Yeah. I spoke to Trooper Sean Roadcap last night for a little while on the phone before I turned in, and I think he was in a little bit better place. I made sure he had contact with both me and the deputy director if he wanted to talk, because we've both been at this for a long time. And then Trooper Doris has an interesting background, because he lost a very close friend in Chris Moreno about 8 years ago. So this is the second significant loss in his professional career. He's married now, and talking to him last night, I think he's in a better place. He has a partner that looks out after him. So he was in a good spirit for what he had been through, and I think a positive outlook. But our job, again, as leadership, is to continue to make sure that those resources are there, that they have an outlet, and if they need the professional piece, that's available too.
What have you learned about Tyler Edenhofer that you didn't learn previous, that really spoke to what an amazing young man he was?
So for a young man who only had been in this agency for 52 days as a trooper and, hired less than a year ago, the respect that he had earned from his fellow troopers and other law enforcement, I have received many personal notes, emails, text messages from those who knew him in this short career. And the impression and the professionalism that he gave off. And it makes me smile, because if you can earn the respect of those in your first 52 days, you've done something right. Because I think all of us that have been around a long time are like, oh, it's just a rookie, we're a little jaded, and how did you prove yourself? And he had already proven himself to not only be a great representative for the Arizona Department of Public Safety as a state trooper, but really for law enforcement in general.
Colonel, thank you so much. We really appreciate you sharing what you're going through and how you'll help them through this very dark time. And we certainly have you have our community support. And
I appreciate it. And I will tell you, the outpouring of the state of Arizona support to my agency and law enforcement, the people I represent, is very humbling. And I give them all my word that I will continue to represent them at the highest level.
Thank you, Colonel.
We'll be right back.